I'm going to give it a minute to let some folks come in. I know some folks normally is used to the theme rolling at 8:30, but as you can see, I am all alone for this one. And Rashad had all the goodies, and I didn't have a chance to touch base with him before he went out camping. So we're gonna see how this goes tonight. But I gave the chat cast a warning. There's not gonna be a theme tonight. So let's see here. Let me share it up to my YouTubers and give it to my people real quick, and then we will get rolling. Let's see, that actually worked pretty better than I thought it would. Oh, Twitter. I hate the tweets. What's going on, Adrian? What's going on, Josh? What's going on, Renegade? Please like it as you come in, ladies and gents. And welcome to the Panther Nation podcast. I am David. Rashad's not here. He out here camping it up as he should, during this crisis, so to speak, during this pandemic. There is a the Percy Miracles is it's his funeral stuff because he passed away. So like it's his pamphlet. Telling it all, huh? What's up, Los, man? Long time no see, man. Now I'm kind of mad I ain't gonna be able to take calls tonight. Yeah, that's the Devon from May the Lord Watch, Little Brother's latest album, and it came with a funeral pamphlet because of Percy Miracles passed away. It was really well done. I mean, maybe next time I run into you, Marcus, maybe if we're at work the same day, we'll link up and I'll bring it so you can see it. It's pretty cool. They always talked about, because they delayed the vinyl for a long period of time, and they said that it's going to be well worth it. That alone was worth it because it was just hilarious in there. Nah, Shad ain't here, man. Shad's camping. So, I would say that it was a slow news day, but that is far from the case. It looks like the NFLPA doesn't have much of a backbone, and these players are going to play. So when you start talking about the agreement said, it looks like the players aren't going to be able to. They're getting paid on a per game basis, which is unsat, and unless you have like a pre-existing type of condition for COVID, one of the symptoms, then you don't have a chance to get recoup your money. But at the same time, we'll get into what happened in baseball. So like at the same time, I feel like when it comes to the NFLPA, they've always been the weakest union out of all the major sports when you're talking about baseball, hockey, basketball, and football. They've always been the weakest union, and it showed here. Like there's a lot of risk that's going to be had for these players to play. And what you're seeing right now is the union not doing what's best for all their players. But at the same time, some of it's on the players too for not fighting enough. But I know like when they did their campaign to say we want to play, that kind of put them in a bad spot off gate because it pretty much shows that, hey, you don't really have that. You pretty much lost your leverage because the NFL doesn't have to do much to prove that it's safe. But the fact that the budget of what they're using for COVID is so different compared to the other leagues. You could tell, like, the opinions of when it comes to which direction they're going, right? Like the NBA has made a conscious effort to make sure that the things are right. The NHL has made a conscious effort to make sure that things are right. MLB has not. NFL has not. And, and it's all about philosophies and what political side they're in when it comes to that. And it's showing because unfortunately, like what happened in baseball with the Miami Marlins it's showing its true colors when it comes to how they're going to handle it. And I appreciate it, Los, man. I've dropped almost 50 pounds since the surgery. So I'm putting it in, and I got my little protein shake working, you know. So I'm putting it in as I can. And for those in the chat, just ask questions. I plan on answering it. I got an agenda of what I want to talk about throughout the episode. So I'm gonna run down it. So like, what's going on with all these other sports? And it's astonishing to me. I think the NBA and the NHL so far has done a phenomenal job when it comes to making sure that their players are tested properly, and they're trying to create that bubble setting. The UFC has done a pretty good job too, but they've had some cases. So when you start taking all those things into consideration, it's tough. So it's a slippery slope, but I just think that some leagues are taking it seriously and others aren't. I don't think the NFL is, and I think you could see a similar situation happening in Florida if they don't get their stuff together with regards to whether or not they're going to do shutdowns and things of that nature in the state of Florida with the NFL teams there. The NFL has 3 NFL teams in the state of Florida. And I think when you start talking about outbreaks, it's going to happen either in Florida or Texas or somewhere else. So, but, you know, and as from a Panthers perspective, we play the Bucs twice a year. So we're going to have to go there. We're going to have to go to Florida once at least. So, you know, we have to take those things into account because the NFL doesn't really have that bubble-to-bubble action rolling. So when you take those things into account, it's going to make it a challenge, to say the least, to make it through the season. I didn't think they should. I thought they probably should have considered canceling the season. After what happened with the NFLPA last week, it's a done deal that the season is going to happen. But, it looks like they're going to see what happens and push through. Like, there's speculation in Major League Baseball that they probably should cancel the rest of their season after what's happening with the Marlins. And for those who don't know, they've had over 10 people tested for COVID after a few games, after opening weekend. So now they're in a spot where they've been postponing games, and now it kind of puts them in a bad spot regarding it. So it's tough, man. It looks like I know that the president was supposed to do the first pitch at a Yankees game, and he delayed it and things of that nature. I heard 11. I heard it was 14, but a third of their roster. And if you want to talk about team sports and social distancing during a team sports, baseball would probably be the one, right? Because, like, even when you're playing defense, you're talking, most folks are 6 feet away from each other until you start talking about the bases, right? So when you want to talk about social distancing, you would think baseball wouldn't have the issues, but it's about how you do the precautions. Like, the NHL has done like a bubble, and it appears that they haven't had any positive cases yet while the NHL do their bubble situation. So it's just tough. Well, it all depends too, right? Because when you talk about testing and the results, there's ways to get your results back in a day. But I think with the influx of how many players are going to have to get tested, it's going to be a challenge, to say the least. The UFC has been able to get results back pretty quickly because when they're getting ready for a fight, they test their fighters like almost 3 times a week, and they don't let them go on planes until they know they're negative. So, you know, and that's part of the reason why the UFC has been looking into trying to move their events away from the States as much as possible. Like, they're going to do some events in the States, but they're going to get back to Fight Island as soon as they can. And I think that's the forward plan for them. Yeah, I know folks think COVID is fake, but I'm not buying it, man. I know folks who got it. I know folks who've recovered. The UFC is making money off their ESPN contract and their pay-per-view revenues. So, like, you know, like, they just signed that deal with ESPN, so it's important for the UFC to get those events popping. They guarantee a certain amount of events. And they've done a pretty good job in making sure that they deliver. So that's how they make their money. And that's part of the reason why Dana White has no interest in doing uh, an, an event in an arena that's only going to be a quarter full because it doesn't make sense to him financially. They might as well just keep doing it in their Las Vegas gym where they've been doing it when they're back in the States. Because for him, it's going to cost them as much, if not more, to make sure all the patrons that go to the fight feel safe. Yeah, I mean, you can decide whether or not it's blown out of proportion. I don't think it's blown out of proportion. I think people are still trying to learn everything they can about the disease. I think there's a lot of things that we don't know yet, other than that we know that it's contagious. And I think we can't, it's not a one size fits all situation. Like some people can get it and then they'll be recovered and they'll be okay. There's some that'll get it, that'll recover and might have some everlasting issues with their body after going through this fight. So like it depends. There's some people that will absolutely die. Like I have friends that have a lot of those symptoms, not symptoms, but high risk symptoms. Like, you know, people that has a certain level of diabetes. There's people that are obese like me, because even though I've lost a lot of weight, I'm still considered obese. I'm just not morbidly obese anymore, but I just hit that road yesterday. But I'm still considered obese. I'm still like not where I need to be yet. I'm still want to drop another 60 pounds. So I'm there. But you know, it's I think there's not enough testing happening. I literally was in a meeting today talking about reopening of the schools because in my city in East Providence, they're proposing to open the schools back up. But they've also concluded that they're gonna, based on the requirements, and they're not gonna be able to have all the high schools and all the middle schoolers in at once. Like this, it's not even possible. Yeah, appreciate it, man. I appreciate the support. Yeah, man. I don't know everybody's situation when it comes to like their weight and stuff, but if you've considered getting weight loss surgery, you should absolutely do it. My knees are thankful. My clothes are thankful. You know, this shirt that I'm wearing right now was given to me while I was down in Greensboro for an event, and the size was 3X. And at the time, there was no way I was gonna get this shirt on. So, you know, like my sizes are dropping. Like I was wearing 5X before this journey started. So I'm already down 2 sizes in t-shirts, so I can't complain. Yeah, like the death rate, I'm happy that people aren't dying as much, but I think it takes a lot of time before we have an idea about the death rate situation because, you know, people aren't dying instantly from it. I think there's some folks that end up on the ventilator or end up in a different situation. They decide to stay home and then they end up dying. It doesn't happen instant. So like you're going to see that roll differently when it comes to it. So, well, my wife had the weight loss surgery too, Marcus. So like for me, I saw her go through it, so I'm not going to start going shopping for clothes until I get to the point where I have to, like until my weight's kind of close to where I'm going to be, and then I'll go shopping. But believe it or not, man, I bought a lot of t-shirts that I couldn't wear that I can wear now. So I got a little bit of a while before I have to get to that point. And I tend to like to wear my shirts loose too, so it'll help a bit. But like, I know last week I had on that Mario shirt. That Mario shirt was a 5XLT. Shy, what's up, man? So at least he's in the chat. You know, his Wi-Fi is spotty, so he might disappear. So don't be shocked if he do. But yeah, I mean, the percentages are the percentages. I think the big thing that everybody needs to be concerned with is the positivity rate in their particular area. And then you make decisions based on that. Like my kids are going to go to school. You know, my kids are going to go to school. But the problem with when you talk about a professional sports league is that they're all over the country, and there's a lot of portions of the country that are in bad shape right now from that standpoint. But when you talk about trying to have a bubble, even when you think you have a plan, it can easily go awry when there's other players that aren't willing to go with the plans. And that example goes to Lou Williams, who made the decision to go to the strip club when he said he had a personal matter to deal with to have access to leave the bubble. And of course, Instagram and Twitter and social media is a powerful tool. He took a picture with some fan and he posted it and let him know that, hey, yo, man, Lou Williams is out here in Atlanta in the strip joint. So he went from Orlando to Atlanta to get the strip joint. Now he claims that he was going to get dinner, but I mean they do take out. Now, granted, I heard, I've never been to Magic City, but I've been told that their food is outstanding. But most, from what I understand, a lot of the strip joints, the food is pretty outstanding. But yeah, he was gonna have to quarantine, but it's about where you went, right? So like, it's one thing if you say I got to deal with a personal matter that's with family, and then you go deal with that personal matter with family, and then you come back and then you do the quarantine. It's a different story when you go and then you go out to an establishment, and now you don't have no level of tracing to keep track of about who you ran into. You don't know if you ran into somebody with COVID. And that's the same thing with family, but at least you kind of have some level of a bubble for that. But if you decide to go to an establishment and stay there for God knows how long he stayed there, it's different. And now you're putting the entire bubble at risk because he wouldn't have said anything to the officials if he didn't get caught. Like that's the reality of the fact. Like, in Georgia, Atlanta in particular is a hot spot. So that's where the threat is. So you go to a hot spot, you don't do what you said you're going to do, and you're putting yourself and you're putting your teammates at risk. So that's why they were debating on what was going to happen with regards to the bubble. So like even in the NBA with the bubble, you still got other things to take into account. And I think right now they got to be careful because it's going to get to the point when maybe the quarantine days might get extended. I know right now I think they're saying 10 days for him, and he's going to miss the first couple of games. I think if they didn't find out about that situation, he probably would have been able to make it for the opener. So when you take all those things into account, it becomes a thing. And so it's tough. I mean, when you start talking about the bubble situation and how you're going to have control of it, it's tough. And that's why I'm concerned that the NFL is going to try to ram this down our throats. But there's too many situations. I'm curious to see what baseball is going to do. They've already said they have no interest in canceling the season. So they're putting a strong stance on right now, but we'll see. But we'll see how it goes, because if we already got 11 players on a team that already got COVID, there's going to be a breaking point. They got to make a decision on how they're going to handle it. I mean, these players aren't really close when they're on the field, but they're super close when you talk about the dugout. The dugouts didn't expand. So, I think the NFL underrated the problem. I think they had an impression that it was going to be over in July, and it looks like it's worse now. Well, they're not going to forfeit. It looks like they're postponing right now, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, and then we got the college situation. The college situation is getting interesting by the day because the NCAA hasn't officially canceled fall sports. It's putting the onus on the conferences and the schools. And some schools are doing what's in the best interest, but other schools are going with what the conference is doing. And what's happening is that a lot of players from these conferences that have made the decision to cancel the season are looking into moving to schools where they can play. I mean, and it's happening across the board, and that's going to be that is a legitimate threat. Yeah, and I agree with Vash when he's talking about the NFL is going to be worse because everybody's touching each other. They got to practice. It's tough. They're not going to do air blocks, so it's going to be very hard to you can't keep distancing playing football. Like I could argue that besides the fact that you got more players to test, you probably should test more constant. You probably have to test more in the NFL than any other sport because of that. It probably goes NFL, NBA, NHL, no, NFL, NBA, NHL, and then but Major League Baseball, where you rank the amount of tests that need to happen. The problem with canceling until COVID is over, though, man, is because we don't know when we're getting the vaccine. Like, I know there's good things that are coming out of the vaccine process, but the reality is we don't know when we're getting one. Everybody's hoping we get one in 2021, but we don't know when we're getting one. So this could be a while. Well, the students are going to go to class whether it's distance learning or if they're going to come in. And at my alma mater, man, at A&T, they're opening up campus, but all the schools within the UNC system are planning to open up their campuses. So when you take into account that, that's what makes it complicated too. So it's hard for a school to say, "Hey, we're canceling fall sports, but students can come," or the other way around. Well, it's about a cure, right? So these scientists gotta figure out what the strand is. They gotta figure out how to make a vaccine. It's gotta go through a long process of approvals because you don't want to risk somebody dying over the vaccine. There's already enough people on Earth on this planet that think that vaccines are a hoax and don't believe in them. So it's just there's more to it than that. There's a process in place. Like I remember as a kid when AIDS started picking up. And people were saying, "Oh, there's going to be a cure for AIDS." There's still not a cure for AIDS to this day. We're talking over 30. We're talking 30 years at this point. So over 30 years at this point. So when you take into account of things like that, you don't know if a vaccine is coming. Well, it's interesting. Like since we're talking about colleges, like A&T did a poll for their student body, and they have over 12,000 students that are going to be planning on coming to the campus. And 12,000 students that are registered for classes for the fall semester, and 65% of them want to do in-person learning, and 35% of them want to do distance learning for their entire class base. So A&T's don't. I believe A&T's not planning on having their students sign waivers. Now, based on that would tell you that that will tell you that the kids want to go to class, so that's why A&T moved forward into trying to come up with a solution so they can go to class in a reduced setting. So they based on the poll, based on the numbers, and based on the certain courses, they set some classes to be online only. They set some classes that was in person, and they set some classes to be hybrid. So it's very it's interesting how they're doing it, but like they're doing it based on the data that they're getting back from their students, and their enrollment didn't fall, which is interesting to say the least too, because you would think and during this era that more students will probably be more cognizant of going to just do online only, but because they're not going to change their rates either. So when you take all those things into account, they have to just make a decision. Yeah, no, I agree. I think some of the kids have been cooped up in their parents' house too, because I know some of the dorms were closed at some of these campuses. But at the same time, like I think when you're talking about like a computer science major or a chemistry major or like a physics major, those type of majors you can't do fully online for 2 or 3 years. Like you got to have some level. You got to do labs and stuff like that. But those things got to be taken into account. But it's for A&T, what measures are they taking? They're putting signs all over the campus. They've locked down certain portions of areas to let folks know, like particularly in the classroom, of where you can sit, what you can't, where you can't. I understand that because I've had to go to a lot of the doctor's appointments since I've had my surgery. So when I go to the doctor's room, like there's things are taped off of where you can and can't sit. And they have a limit of how many people can be in the office. So it's the same thing when it comes to the classes. There's a limit of how many people that could be in the class. And they've taped those things off. They've set up certain things with regards to a bubble for the dorms, because if you live in a suite, so it's considered a family unit for certain things when it comes to resident housing. So those things are taken into account. There's a lot to it. So, yeah, I'm interested to see about if they're going to do something about a waiver situation. But, I think A&T and some of the other UNC schools as well have done a pretty good job trying to communicate with the students and the parents about how they're pushing it forward. They've set up a residence hall for folks who potentially might have COVID. If they have the symptoms, they have a residence hall set up, separated from everything else. And they've been vigorous, and they have a cleaning crew that's going to be cleaning the campuses all the time. So it's a lot. Like they adjusted hours for certain things, so they have time to clean. So I mean, they're doing everything that they can from their end. So I never took chemistry in college, so I had a choice between biology, chemistry, and earth science, and I had to take two of them, and I picked biology and earth science. I heard about the linebacker, but the linebacker ain't making the team, so it's a moot point for me. What is his name? I saw a tweet about it, but he ain't making the team. He's just a camp body. And the thing is, like, and I was gonna get into this whole training camp thing. Tomorrow, it was another kid that got signed. There was another kid that got signed. So training camp is tomorrow. It starts tomorrow. Yes, Adrius Taylor. The training camp starts tomorrow, and the players are going to show up tomorrow, and we're going to see how this is going to go. But in my humble opinion, when it comes to the players, there aren't, like, they expanded the amount of practice squad players that you can have on your roster. In my opinion, I don't think neither one of them are going to make the team. I know there's two of them. I don't think either one of them are going to make the team. They're at in my opinion, they're at an extreme disadvantage because they're just getting signed now. I don't envision them making the team, but I could be wrong. But I just don't see them making the team. I think even with a brand new coach, I envision, because of what's going on with the distancing and things of that nature, I don't envision folks showing up now having a shot at making the team unless it's somebody that was a cap casualty that pops up. So for me, it's like, I think they're going to try to roll with folks who've been within the organization first. And I think they're going to leverage more on the practice squad aspect too, because you got to take into account that with COVID, if people start getting the fake virus, as Trilla said, then they're going to have to go into their practice squad pool. Yeah, that's a good point about the Patriots. Well, I don't know, man. Like, I'm going to talk about fantasy near the end of the episode. Like, I think I have an opinion about draft strategy this year, and I'm going to do a full episode on fantasy at some point. But I have a whole philosophy on draft strategy this year. I'm debating on how I feel. Like, I'm going to probably change a different philosophy on it. No, we're not signing a 46-year-old TO. Stop it, guys. I don't care if he's running a 4.4. We don't need a 46-year-old TO. We already got wide receivers. I don't think they're going to make it through the season. I don't. Like, I think the benefit for the Panthers having a season, the benefit of the NFL having a season from a Panthers perspective is that I don't think a lot of the fan base has us winning a lot of games. So if the season starts and we have a slow start and then they cancel the season, that'll help us in draft position. That's just my opinion on it, because I have us going 4-12, 5-11. So when you start thinking about it from that perspective, I think us having a season will help us in draft position. Like, because if they end up having a can later in the year, it won't be that big of a deal. Yeah, see, there's so many factors involved, man. When you're talking about the fact that there's no preseason, that means injuries might be rampant near the beginning. They're not gonna have the proper training camp, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of precautions when it comes to training camp too. So it puts us in a bad spot. We got a brand new coach, brand new head coach, brand new coaching staff, and they gotta deal with all the COVID protocols. So it's going to be a challenge in itself. Whereas you're talking about a team that has a head coach that's been around for a while, that has a lot of their players back, that already understands the process when it comes to that. They're going to be at a distinct advantage over us because we got a new head coach. So, I mean, if a team has a new head coach, it's going to be difficult. So, I know somebody earlier asked about Cam Newton and the Patriots, and I'm looking forward to see how they react to the offense. But the big thing that I noticed was that they tried to interview him when he was getting off the plane, and the way he was like he wasn't going to take any comments. So he's starting to implement the Patriot way right now, because that's the Patriots way. So he looks it looks like that Cam is sliding towards the Patriots way right now, the way he's looking, because normally he would never have an issue interviewing anybody, but this when they called him at the airport, he really was like, I really don't have no comments, and then he was like, go Pats, and walked away. So I thought that was interesting, to say the least. And nah, man, you haven't missed Tony, you haven't missed the fantasy email, because I haven't set it up yet. I mean, Cam got to be. Well, I mean, I don't even know what Cam's Madden rating is, but I would assume I'm assuming it's in the 80s, but I could be wrong. We're gonna have to draft college football. Ooh, 78 is pretty bad for him. Ooh, that's kind of brutal. That's kind of brutal. But I mean, they'll adjust it later. But good grief, 78. That's pretty brutal. But it's Madden. I mean, I think Madden said the Eagles' offense is just as good, is better than the Chiefs. So it's all about perspective. But still, that's kind of low for Cam. Even because we're talking about healthy Cam, right? Healthy Cam is at least an 85, at least from that standpoint. And Teddy should be higher too. I think they're slandering Teddy a bit, but yeah. But now it's gonna be interesting. Like I've been trying to really, he hasn't been 85 to tell you how much I've been playing Madden. Really? Wow, they hating. That's hate, man. Because this is going to be a motivated Cam this year if they can make it through the full season. I think this is going to be a very motivated Cam, and I'm going to talk about that when I get into fantasy. So speaking of which, because I've already pretty much hit everything that I had. When you want to talk about Cam. So when we talk about fantasy this year, from the standpoint of who I think is the top player in fantasy, in my opinion, it's Christian McCaffrey. I think Christian McCaffrey is my one. No bias in it. I think if you got the number one pick, I think you need to take Christian. I think because of the fact that the Panthers aren't going to they're not anticipated to do well, Christian's going to eat regardless. And I think he's a more dependable pick from an injury standpoint. He's a more dependable pick from the fact that they just signed this dude to a mega deal. He is a safer number one pick than Saquon. And that's just my opinion on it. I mean, the debate is always going to be the debate is going to be either CMC or Saquon. Like, those are the two people you're going to debate on whether or not it's going to be the number one pick. So when you start thinking about that, I mean, I think CMC is the more dependable option. They can focus on CMC all they want. They did the same thing last year and they couldn't take him away. He's going to get his catches. In a full-point PPR league, he's going to get his catches. He's going to get his catches. He's going to probably line up a receiver on occasion. They're going to utilize him. So I mean, even with Kyle Allen, McCaffrey was having some phenomenal days. So I'm pretty sure with Teddy Bridgewater, and everybody's already being critical about Teddy Bridgewater because he doesn't know how to slang it like that. So that means he's going to be checking it down to Christian. And each time he checks it down to Christian, that is a point. And if he gets 10 yards, that's another point. So Christian is a 5-catch, 50-yard, maybe a touchdown, and a 15 to 20 carry back every single time. And when you have something like that, you have to take him that high because he's guaranteed to touch the ball at least 20 times. And this NFL, that is hard to find. So when you're talking about your Christian McCaffreys, your Saquon Barkleys, your Zeke Elliott's, when you start talking about those guys and talking about volume and how many carries that they're getting, that has to be taken into account when you got one of those top 3 picks. Yeah, but Christian was pretty much up there with them, man. When you go back and look at the numbers, when you talk about he was averaging, like, Christian ended up being the 6th best wide receiver in fantasy and a top 3 running back in fantasy. So you're getting a wide receiver 1 and a running back 1 in one guy. So, so when you start thinking about Saquon Barkley and his injuries, you have to take that into account too. So that's why you go with that. And considering that we didn't have a proper offseason for these players. We're not having a preseason with these players. Christian's the pick. Like I think some experts might disagree, but I think Christian's the pick. It's Christian, then you can go with the Saquon and Zeke. Yeah, it's Christian. Christian's the pick. Like it's pretty simple. You got the number 1 pick, you take Christian. So now we paid him too much money not to. Yeah, we are. Absolutely we are. He's going to be the foundation of the team. We are absolutely going to run him to the ground because we paid him that much money to do that. He is the face of the franchise. All right. It's not an accident of how things move within the offseason. They paid him that money. They moved Cam out. He's the face of the franchise on the offensive side of the ball. Simple as that. Now, there's some interesting prospects that you got to look into, like somebody like a Kenyon Drake. I could really see Kenyon Drake end up being close in the late first round, second round discussions. I think DJ Moore is going to be interesting this year. I think he's going to be higher. I think the Panthers are going to benefit because they're going to be playing from behind a lot. Like they're not going to be that good, so they're going to be playing from behind. So there's going to be a lot of garbage points. And in fantasy football, garbage points is still fantasy points. So, you got to remember, they're playing the Bucs twice. They get to play Tom Brady twice. They get to play Drew Brees twice. And they get to play Matt Ryan twice. And all 3 teams should have all 3 of those teams should have high-powered offenses. So I traded for Drake and I dropped him. And then he had his crazy run. Those are the breaks. But anywho, if I would have kept Drake, I probably would have won that league. I ended up placing second, but I probably would have won the league if I would have kept him. But I digress. But anywho, man, like I think when you talk about that, I think Christian is the number 1 pick. My opinion, no debate. Since we're talking about fantasy, feel free to ask me an opinion on other players. I think when you start factoring in COVID, you have to start thinking about how to handle the strategy if one of your players go out with COVID. I think Teddy Bridgewater is super late. But the thing is, you'll be able to grab Teddy Bridgewater at a ridiculous bargain. Even in auction leagues, you can be able to grab him at a bargain because people aren't thinking about Teddy Bridgewater. But Teddy Bridgewater has top 12 QB potential because of the fact that he's going to be playing for Carolina and he's going to have weapons to throw to. So when you have weapons to throw to, and you have Joe Brady out here trying to sling this thing, your quarterback becomes valuable quickly. But I don't think people are gonna look into Teddy Bridgewater at all because of the fact that he's not gonna have the offseason. But Teddy Bridgewater is a potential top 12 pick if he can stay top 12. He can end up in the top 12 in QBs in fantasy. But just like any other year, the quarterback position is deep. So you shouldn't have to rush. You shouldn't have to rush to go get your quarterback because you will be able to pick up a Teddy Bridgewater. Last year, Lamar Jackson was drafted super late in a lot of leagues. And he ended up being like the top quarterback in fantasy. So you can go late and get these guys. But now Lamar Jackson is going to be one of the first quarterbacks because we're all about what happened last year. But you have to think about what's going on this year. And you have to set value next to it. Because when somebody has to take that quarterback early, they're putting their squad at risk. Because it's going to be more imperative now that you draft running backs and wide receivers early. It's going to be more imperative now because all it takes is the COVID case and your guy might be out for 2 weeks. So I'm going to add IR for this season because of everything that's going on. I plan on adding an IR slot. So when you start thinking about how to handle the draft, you need to be drafting these running backs and these wide receivers very early, because you probably should be constant of it for a while and wait for your quarterbacks and tight end. So when you start talking about how you're going to draft these players and where you're going to draft these players, I don't think I'm interested in taking Lamar Jackson in the second, third, fourth, fifth round. I don't. I think if he's sitting there in the fifth, I'll consider it, because then at that point I might have 4 out of my 5 main slots at the running back, wide receiver positions. So in the fifth round, I might do it if he's still there, if I'm in the right spot and if it makes sense. But I really need you guys to start thinking about the running back situation. And I would consider the handcuff situation too. Like, I think there's 2 strategies. Do you handcuff all your running backs, or do you decide not to handcuff any at all and just try to get as many starters as you can? Lamar's rushing yards don't intrigue me. Not enough to be drafting them that high because of what I'm going to have to give up. And now we have a full season. It could be the potential of trying to shut them down. So I don't know. It's going to be tough. Lamar, it intrigues me a bit, but not to the point of the sacrifice of what I'm going to have to give up. Because if Lamar, the thing is, like, you got to remember, if somebody like him, if he gets hurt, you're screwed. Because now you're depending on, because you draft him that high, that means you're depending on his rushing yards, you're depending on his quarterback need, and the quarterback yards too. So if you draft him that high and he gets hurt, you got a double whammy, because you draft him that high, cost you depth in your running back or wide receiver position, and now you're gonna have to go get another runner. Now you're gonna have to go get a quarterback on top of that. Yeah, the Panthers being 20-1 is wild to me. For the NFC South, that is a pretty good bet. That's pretty good odds. If you want to talk about Cam Newton and where you put him in fantasy, I think that's like last year you were able to get Cam in like the 9th or the 10th round. I think it's going to be about the same this year, because I think some people in a hat are thinking, oh well, Cam should do better with Belichick, but then other people are probably still jaded about what happened to him last year. So there's some people that still think he's still hurt. So when you take that into account, they'll probably be around the same region that he got drafted last year. So yeah, Lamar is one good hit away from being out for like 4 weeks. And Lamar's had injury problems too. But we ain't gonna talk about that. I want to hope and believe that Cam Newton's going to be better this year, but in the 17-round draft, 9 to 10 is okay, because I think around round 9, 8, round 8 and 9, that's when folks go start taking their quarterbacks. Nah, the vegan diet ain't it though, man. There's a lot of other players that have vegan diets that don't have the injury history that Cam has, so that's not fair. Yeah, of course they're going to say they're starting Stidham. They haven't seen Cam yet. They don't even know if he's gotten the playbook down. Like, there's a lot of factors into this. Bill's not starting Cam if he don't know that playbook. I'm going to tell y'all that right now. Bill Belichick is not starting Cam Newton. Like, he'll sell Cam Newton jerseys, but he ain't starting Cam Newton until he knows that playbook. Period. So Stidham's the starter until that happens. Stidham knows the playbook. Come on, Marcus. He knows the playbook. He's been in the offense long enough. He knows the playbook. He's got a championship ring, man. He knows the playbook. So, and I don't think Stidham's going to just give this job to Cam either. I think Cam is going to have to fight for it. So I hope Cam doesn't walk into it thinking that he's got the job in the bag, because it's not. I know if he listens to the media, it seems that way. But Bill's not starting Cam if he doesn't know the playbook. Period. That's bottom line. Simple as that. Because the way Bill Belichick operates is different than a lot of these other coaches. Like if Cam got signed with any other team that had questions at the quarterback position, like the Bears and some other teams, it was a no-brainer. No, man. Yeah, Jimmy Clausen, right? Different head coach. John Fox ain't Bill Belichick. Bill is not starting Cam if you don't know that playbook. Period. Panthers, Patriots, like right now, Patriots. Right now, Patriots. Because we don't know what Rule's going to do, man. No, I'm not saying he can't learn the playbook. I'm just telling you that if he doesn't, he ain't going to win the job. It's that simple. I live up here, man. Bill's not playing him because of what he's done in the past. Bill's going to play him if he does everything that he's supposed to do. And I anticipate that Cam is going to do everything that he's supposed to do. But that being said, he ain't playing him if he don't know the playbook. So it's that simple. Let's be real about it. Bill Belichick has had big stars before, and they struggled with them. Not at the quarterback position, because this is the first of its kind for the quarterback position. But in other positions, he's had big stars, and people thought that he was going to be a starter and he's going to ball. I'll give you an example. Chad Johnson. He showed up. Everybody thought he was going to start. Nope. He was the fourth wide receiver on that team. You got to learn that playbook, man. Got to learn that playbook. If you don't know that playbook, they're not going to play. They're not playing that. He's not playing. Simple as that. And Stidham has an advantage there. Yeah, like if Hoyer knows the playbook and plays better than Stidham and Cam, Hoyer's going to get the job. Like that's what it boils down to. Like I think folks are like, well, Cam's got to win the job, and I'm like, he off talent alone, yes, but if he doesn't know the playbook, it's a moot point to Bill. But I think Cam's going to learn the playbook. I think Cam's going to win the starting job, and I think Cam is a 9th or 10th round pick in fantasy. Period, in my opinion. I think Cam has a lot of potential to bring you value if he does win that job. Because I think with Josh McDaniels as the OC, I think they're going to let Cam run wild. Yeah, I mean, Cam's already talked about how complicated the playbook is, but that doesn't mean he still can't learn it. I still have faith that he's going to be able to learn it, but still, it's not as easy as, oh, he's going to win the job. He's going to get the job. He's got to earn the job. He is the third string quarterback right now in New England right now. What QB outside of Brady has been decent in a McDaniels offense? That's nobody. Well, Tim Tebow helped me in the fantasy league once when he was when McDaniels was in Denver. And truth be told, Stidham played pretty well when he got a starting chance in a regular NFL season, and so did Jacoby Brissett. So, the system works, but it's about knowing the playbook. It goes back to knowing the playbook. No, we don't know that, because remember, people don't talk about how the Patriots have always been a top five run offense, including when Brady is there. So they run the ball a lot. And with Cam's ability to run, that is going to put another wrinkle on the Patriots offense. I don't think people understand how the Patriots operate. They run the ball a lot. But it makes it hard to pick a running back, which brings me to the running backs for the Patriots. It's going to make it harder if Cam gets the job. Because now, instead of having a 3-headed monster in New England, it becomes 4. Because now you have to be concerned with Cam running, you got to be concerned with White, you got to be concerned with Michelle, and you got to be concerned with Burkhead. So when you put those factors in, it makes it very difficult. Castle played well in that offense too, but I don't think was McDaniels there when Castle. I think McDaniels was there. Why are you asking me simple questions, man? Sub-Zero finishing move, they pull the head out. They take his head off. He takes his head off. I don't remember if McDaniels was there for Castle. I think he was, but I'm not 100% sure. He might have been in Denver at that time. No, he was at Denver at that time, I believe. Well, I mean, he ain't going to run as much as he used to, but I think he's going to run. I think, he ain't going to probably run 150 carries, but he's going to run enough. Oh, what is it? Yo, it's been a minute. And the thing is, on the arcade version of MK2, there's no way to change the timer. So, you still only have 2 or 3 seconds to pull it off. It ain't like it is on the consoles where it's a longer time. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, I figured. I didn't think he was there. But you know, I mean, we'll see. We'll see about that. You know, I think for me, when it comes to drafting running backs this round, I think I'm not gonna do handcuffs because I question whether or not handcuffs are gonna be as effective. I'll probably, if I have a top 3 pick, I'll probably handcuff the first running back that I take, but I don't think I'm gonna be handcuffing the rest of them. I think I'm just gonna try to get the best running back available um, every single round when I can, when I decide to go at a running back. Kittle or Kelsey in draft, if you have a choice, Kelsey. Kelsey. No question. Kelsey's number one. Kelsey's number one tight end in fantasy. It's Kelsey, then Kittle, and then after that, it's a debate. I mean, Gronk is going to go higher, but then you got to decide whether or not you want to trust his injury history. What top 3 running back has a handcuff? I mean, you figure out who the backup is for the team, and then you take them. I mean, if the top 3, for me, the top 3 running backs is Zeke, Barkley, and McCaffrey. So whoever the backup is going to be the handcuff. But the thing is, handcuffs might not be as effective this year because of COVID. Because if you're talking about if you're talking about if a running back gets COVID, that means the whole room might be affected. So I don't know if you're going to be able to leverage handcuffs at that point, right? It just might set. Yeah. I'll draft them super late, probably last round of the draft. I'll draft them. Whoever's the RB2 for, if I take McCaffrey, whoever the RB2 is, I'm drafting them. Whoever it is. If it's Bonifant, I'm drafting Bonifant. That hasn't been fully decided yet because you don't know what's going to happen with Rule. But whoever that RB2 is going to be, I'm drafting him if I have McCaffrey. I like Ridley a lot. I think that he has limitations because of Julio. When you want to talk about the top 5 wide receivers in fantasy, I mean, it's pretty close to the same as last year, right? I mean, you got DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Devontae Adams. When you start thinking about, when you talk about them 3, those are probably the big 3 in my eyes. Julio, Devontae, and Julio, Devontae, and Hopkins, especially Hopkins. But then after that, it's about preference at that point because OBJ can't be trusted. Ridley is interesting, but not top 5 material. DJ Moore has top 5 upside because of the division that he plays in. And then you got to decide how. And one of the Bucs wide receivers are going to be top 5. They're both definitely top 10. And I like Keenan Allen a lot this upcoming year. So, because I mean, so there's a bunch. Like there's pretty much 3. Well, I mean, the thing about we'll see. I think the problem with Ridley is that there's so many factors involved with him because Julio's going to get his too. And then I'm thinking that the Falcons. I don't know why I thought the Falcons drafted another receiver or picked up another receiver, but and then you got to be concerned with Ty Gurley taking some of those catches too, because he can catch balls out of the backfield as well. So when you take into that account, that eats up Ridley's targets. It's going to affect Ridley more than it's going to affect Calvin Ridley more than it's going to affect Julio because Julio has his role and it's kind of submitted. So no, because we saw last year that Juju's not the same guy without Antonio Brown there. So no, Tyreek Hill is definitely in the top 5, by the way. Shame on me for not mentioning him. So I mean, I think the Chiefs' offense is going to be pretty high. I don't think Juju's got to bounce back. Odell Beckham's interesting, but I still wouldn't put Odell Beckham in my 5 because he plays for Cleveland. I mean, you can't trust Cleveland. But I think DJ Moore has top 5 upside, but you don't have to take him as a top 5 wide receiver. But like sometimes you have players that have that level of upside. I love Drew Lock this year, man. I love Drew Lock this year. I really do. I think I think I'm going to be going after a lot of Drew Lock this year because I think he's in a division that's offensive that's offense heavy. I like Drew Lock a lot this year, and I think nobody's really talking about Drew Lock like that. So if I I know I'm going to make the decision to go late on quarterbacks. Drew Lock is on my list because a lot of folks aren't thinking about Drew Lock. So yeah, I like Drew Lock a lot this year because nobody's thinking about Drew Lock. I think Josh Allen is going to be another slept-on player again. I like him a lot this year. I think once you get past Breeze, Ryan, Mahomes, Rodgers, Jackson, once you get past the obvious cats that are going to get drafted, you're going to have somebody like a Drew Lock or a Josh Allen that ends up rated higher than some of those guys. Because that's what happens every year in fantasy, just like with defenses. Josh Jacobs, yeah. Josh Jacobs is probably the only player I would trust on the Raiders right now. I trust Josh Jacobs. Philip Lindsay or Melvin Gordon, I'm still rolling with Philip Lindsay. I like Philip Lindsay a lot. So Broncos is still a situation where you could draft both Lindsay and Freeman and play them both too. But I like Drew Lock a lot, man. I really do. I think Drew Lock is going to have a breakout year, and nobody's really paying too much attention to him. So let's see. But no, I mean, quarterbacks, receivers, yeah, like CMC's the best all-around player in the league right now. I mean, I'm they've already started the top 100 NFL players of 2021, so I'm hoping that CMC should be in the top 10. He probably should be number 1. But I envision they'll probably put Lamar Jackson there. If I had to guess, Lamar Jackson would be there. But he should at least be the top 10. I think if CMC doesn't make the top 10, it's a travesty. I think CMC should be top 3. But he's arguable. He should be in the last episode. Like he should be in the debate of who's the top player. There shouldn't be a single running back ahead of him either. If there is, that's a travesty. Let's be clear. Yeah, he should be top 3. I mean, I think you probably put Lamar ahead of him and maybe Mahomes. He's definitely, he's going to be on the last night. If he's not on the last night, it's a travesty. And they're taking into account about the Panthers record. And that does happen sometimes. Yeah, it'll probably be 3 CMC, 2 Mahomes, 1 Lamar, in that order. Because people forget that Mahomes was hurt. So, I'll put Lamar and Mahomes ahead of him, but after that, it's probably going to be CMC. It should be CMC at 3. Now, I didn't cover the Jamal Adams trade to Seattle, but I don't know if for Seattle it'll be interesting. I mean, I think it'll help. It'll help Seattle a lot on their defensive side of the ball. They've been overdue for an anchor within that defense. It makes Seattle a legitimate threat to get into the Super Bowl. But, this whole season, I stand by they're not going to make it to the end of the year. So. But they did give up a lot for that safety, man. But then again, man, they give up all in first-round picks. But Seattle's going to be near the – Seattle could legitimately make it to the NFC Championship game or potentially the Super Bowl. So when you take that into account, they're not really giving up too much. It's going to end up being a second-round pick because it's going to be at the bottom of the draft in the round, bottom of the round. So, yeah, I'm thinking CMC should be 3. Like, and I wouldn't be mad. I could see him getting 2, but I don't think there's no way he's gonna. I don't think there's no way that he voted out Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's going to be number 1. So. Yep. It's a tough division, but you can skip to the Super Bowl with a wild card. This happened before. I mean, and everybody's talking like San Fran's just going to come back and get there. I don't know about that one. Yeah, and now if you want to talk about the situation with the Jets, it's amazing that Adam Gase is getting all these opportunities too. By the way, I just want y'all to know about that. Gase getting all these opportunities is wild to me. And I think maybe some of the players feel the same way, which is why a lot of them are trying to get out. The hangover is going to hit San Fran, man. Jimmy G's not as good as we think he is. I wouldn't draft Jimmy G at all. I don't think he's draftable. I'm going to go ahead and put that out there. It's probably obvious, but I don't think Jimmy G is draftable. Well, Eric, look, man, I think the Chiefs are going to repeat. If we make it through the NFL season, I think the Chiefs is going to repeat. My opinion. I think the Chiefs are going to repeat. I think the Chiefs are going to be Super Bowl champs again. Because they got to keep Eric B. So I think the Chiefs are going to be the champs again. I mean, I think the only threat to them right now are probably the Patriots, and that is assuming that Cam can get the playbook popping. Other than that, Chiefs about to get this run again. Cowboys ain't gonna be decent enough. CMC is gonna be a captain this year. He's the face of the franchise. He's gonna get voted as the captain. Not a question in my mind. Right now, I agree with you. The Ravens are a bigger threat, but I don't think neither one of them can beat the Chiefs. Not in this state. Not yet. Like right now, as it stands on paper, the Chiefs are probably gonna get there again. They had a phenomenal offseason. They had a phenomenal draft. They haven't hardly lost anybody, and the players are going to get better. They don't have to worry about new coaches, new players really trying to come in and mess around with the system like that. The Chiefs are primed to run this back. They are primed for it. So, CMC, CMC is going to be a captain on the offensive side. Shaq's going to be a captain, going to be the two main going to be the captain on the defensive side. I think Trey Boston potentially could be a captain. I see it from the secondary perspective. I could see that happening because I think he's liked. Bridgewater will probably end up being the captain because he's the quarterback, but I could see a scenario where they might give it to another younger player, but I anticipate it'll be Bridgewater and CMC on the offensive side. But on the defensive side, it's going to be Shaq. Shaq is going to take the reins of this defense. I'm thinking it's going to be Shaq and Trey. Special teams, it's going to probably be JJ. A few weeks ago, we did a prediction. I had him 4-12. Oh yeah, KK too. I keep forgetting, man. He was out the season. KK will probably be a captain. So in that case, it's gonna be Shaq and KK. Trey ain't gonna make it because I think it's only 4 captains, right? Nah, I think Jansen. I could see Jansen getting it. So Okun's not gonna get it. I don't think Okun's. I'll be shocked if Okun get it. Yeah, that's the thing too. Like I think it. And the thing is, man, our wide receiver core are still pretty young, and I think some level of leadership needs to be had in that position. So, I think Julius Peppers was a captain for a while for us. So I mean, he's pretty quiet. He's about doing his work on the field. So I mean, there's no shame in that. I think Shaq can take the reins. But if you want somebody loud and rambunctious, then you got to look into the Trey Boston, Sly or Gano. I'm rooting for Sly, but I have a funny feeling Gano's going to get it. So, my opinion, I'm rooting for Sly, but I think Gano's going to win it. Yeah, I think it'll make sense for Trey to be a captain, but I don't know if it's realistic when you start considering the factors. Because I think with them rebuilding with Luke retiring and Cam being left, Cam gone, and other players leaving and things of that nature, so it makes sense to get to the next phase. So, Bucker has a Super Bowl ring right now, man. I'm happy for him. I felt like the biggest mistake Marty Hurdy did was how he handled the kicker situation. Period. So far, in my opinion, with Hurney 2.0, that was a extreme error. They should have kept him. Punter. Yeah, I mean, I ain't too worried about that. I think when you start talking about the about the Panthers potentially trying to tank. There's going to be a lot of factors involved. I like I've from the standpoint of the 2020 season, I've kind of washed my hands with the season. I'm hoping that we show heart. I'm hoping that we play hard, but I don't think we're going to have like a great record like that because of our division and who we're playing outside of the division. Nah, I mean we don't. Well, how? But here's the thing, man. How is Pilardi in trouble? They're not going to have a way to access these players. Like Pilardi is going to keep the job. like normally the preseason is utilized to figure out who's going to get these jobs. So it's gonna like unless Rule wants to switch punters, and that's possible, it's gonna be hard, man. Like it's very, very difficult to assess players that don't already have a starting job or don't already have their part on the depth with depth. Because right now, everybody's got to make their decisions without any games being played. So, like, you're going to go from 80 players to 53 players, and everybody's got to make their decisions without any games being played. So that's where it gets difficult. So when you take all those things into account, it makes it much harder for players to just come in and break through. So like, you know, we signed a punter, cool. We signed some linebackers, cool. But it's going to be tough because now, so when you factor in, all right, if there's no injuries, that's the only thing that'll give these guys a shot, really. Because when you factor in signing 2 linebackers now, prior to training camp officially starting tomorrow, you have to take into effect that everybody else, even though they didn't really get the hit, they still got their hands on the playbook. They still probably had meetings with the position coaches. So there's a lot of things that put these players that have been involved at a much bigger advantage than the players that have just shown up right before training camp. So when you take those things into account, it's going to make it tough for somebody to just pop in and make an impact. Like if Terrell Davis got signed on the Broncos during this pandemic, Terrell Davis probably wouldn't make the team. Like, if you want to be real about it. So, you know, because Terrell Davis wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that hit he did on special teams because it wouldn't have been, there was no games. I'm wearing a shirt to represent the Aggie Athletic Foundation. You know, even right now with the schools closing, it's more important to give to your athletic foundations because, particularly at historically black colleges, because they're very dependent on those donations as it is, and it makes it more challenging now that there might not be a season. So doesn't matter where they're from. They haven't punted. Like, and that's the thing, right? So like anybody that shows up now is a factor. Well, I received the shirt. Well, I mean, because, you know, truth be told, when it comes to athletics, while they're like for smaller schools that aren't in big conferences, Power 5 conferences, they're very dependent on that money to run those athletic programs and to give out scholarships as well. So that's why you need to do it. Nah, I'm not having phone lines today, man. Rashad's got all the keys to those castles, so that's why I'm taking all taking all the questions in the chat. You know, Rashad will be back next week, and then we're gonna talk about. He'll probably be like, "Why'd you talk about COVID for 20 minutes?" But you know, it is what it is. I think, you know, the reason why we have to have the conversations about COVID is because it's such a big everything when it comes to the NFL season. It's factoring in that. So, like, we've already had 4 Vikings players that ended up on the COVID reserve list today. So, like, when you start so it's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with. Yeah, man. Like, I mean, for A&T's perspective, like, the football and basketball pays for all the non-revenue sports. So, you know. And I think right now the season's canceled for A&T, but there's speculation that they might look into taking over another team's schedule that decides not to play in a conference. So we'll see if that if that comes to fruition, because we were scheduled to play North Dakota State this year. So I think there might be a possibility that they just still want to have those games played. So we'll see. That's right, man. I could talk for as long as I want, but I'm here to take questions from the crew, from the chat. I know Rashad was in here for about a minute, but he was like, "Oh, Dave's just doing it." So we're doing pretty good. And I didn't even talk about how to handle rookies for fantasy. I'm gonna be honest. I'm staying away. I want all the smoke with North Dakota State. I want it all. I'm more concerned about them being a hotspot like North Carolina. So there's one smoke I don't want those players to have, and that's the Rona. But other than that, I want all the smoke. I did cancel my trip though. I canceled my hotel last week. And I got to call American Airlines and cancel the flight situation. I want all the smoke. We don't know what's going to happen, man. Let's not do that. That's not fair. We've beaten top 5 teams in the FCS before, so that's not fair. Let's not do that. We could go up to Fargo and beat them dudes if they underestimate us, and we will take that check they're giving us. We will take your money, and we will give you the proper stopping. So let's not get it twisted. Even though I do like Trey Lance, I think Trey Lance is legit, and I could see us. So what? They won 8 out of the last 9 national championships. So what? So team cap. I mean, right now we're sitting at 175 mil. We'll see, man. I think the Panthers have done a pretty good job to manage it. We'll play Coastal any day in the week, twice on Sunday. We're not scared of Coastal. I heard that was happening with Prairie View, A&M, but I don't know if nothing's official. I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't watch enough college to be getting into who's the best wideout, because like I watch A&T play, and I occasionally watch a big game, but I don't watch enough college. Rashad watches college religiously. I don't watch nearly as much college as him. But like, I like Jerry Jeudy when I saw him play, but like when I don't watch enough college to be like, I'll be honest when I say I'm not an expert. I thought about getting more involved in college, man, but it's just I think the players should be paid. So I'm like, it's hard for me to watch it occasionally. Oh God, anybody that's signed defensively, because I think our defense ain't gonna be too hot this year, man. We could legit have one of the worst. We could legit have a bottom 10 defense this year in the NFL. Yeah, so I'm hoping Whitehead pans out, but I don't know if Whitehead will pan out. So it's so tough when you start talking about the wide receivers. It's so tough. Yeah, that's the thing too, man. Like my Saturdays are precious. So like typically Sundays I'm sitting, and it's funny because now with the weight loss surgery, I got to figure out how I'm going to handle my routines. Like the thing about weight loss, losing all this weight and dieting and what you can and can't have. The big thing that I normally would do on Sundays, I do a lot of drinking, and now I haven't had a drink yet. I haven't had a drink since the surgery, and I don't know when I'm going to have my next drink, to be honest with you. So it's not. My routine is different. Like I normally like Saturday when there's a big UFC fight, I would like do something similar. But yeah, it could be the defense could be way worse than last year's. We've lost a lot of players. We lost Luke. So our defense has the potential to be worse than last year. But so when you take that into account, like sometimes your routine changes, and like I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to handle going to watch the games, because I still don't feel comfortable sitting at a bar to watch them. So I got to figure that out too. I might have to buy a package this year because of it. Because normally I would just go to the bar near my house, but there's certain restrictions about distancing and things of that nature because of the pandemic. So it might make more sense for me to just to buy the NFL package and watch it from there. And that's what I'm probably going to end up doing. Yeah, it'd be nice if they would. That's for sure. But if I do get the package, Marcus, you're always invited to come by. And there's always the VPN. But yeah, man, our defense is not going to be better than last year's. This is why, like, I think you can draft a lot of Panther players in fantasy because of that. Because we're playing Tampa twice, because we're playing the Saints twice, because we're playing the Falcons twice. I think, and we're playing the Chiefs, and I think Denver's offense is going to be better too. I think when you take all those things into account, we're going to run into a lot of high potent offenses this year, and because of that, I think we're going to be able to we're gonna be able to put up a lot of points as well because our defense we're going to have to keep up with these teams, so we're going to have to sling with that. Our run defense might get better, but our pass defense ain't gonna be that well, man. And I think we might have issues with it because we don't have Luke. Yeah. So but we'll see because it's gonna get interesting because I know a lot of these colleges are gonna play. We don't know how long that's gonna last either. Rashad's out, man. He's out camping. And damn, man. At least I know now Rashad's the popular one. But Rashad does a lot, man. He runs the show from the standpoint in the background with the soundboards and things of that nature. So he does a lot. I don't have all those things, and I didn't have a chance to link up with him to get myself set up like that. Well, I promise you, Plymouth, that Teddy Bridgewater is going to have more than 14 touchdowns this year. But we'll see what happens with the wide receiver situation. But I don't know if it's a guarantee that we'll draft a wide receiver early. I don't want to talk about what Mike Ditka said. He said some terrible comments in the past too, so I'm good. He's going to be who he's going to be. You got to understand who these play. See, like you got to understand when it comes to the affiliations of these former players and these players. So it's kind of similar to the leagues too. You got to understand the affiliations because if you notice, the affiliation is pretty much how they're running this pandemic. The leagues that are trying, the only league right now that doesn't match the affiliation is the UFC, because the UFC has affiliation for our current president, and he has done a really good job when it comes to testing and making sure their guys are tested properly. But the other folks that are affiliated have not done an adequate job when it comes to trying to create the bubbles, when it comes to try to reduce the amount of test, to do enough tests for the players. I don't think the NFL is doing enough. I don't think Major League Baseball is doing enough, in my opinion. And you can see it by the number of cases. The NBA hasn't had a case since they started the bubble. Neither has the NHL. So you can see that it's working because they're going off of what the science shows. And I think that's important to try to get us through this hurdle. So it looks like we're going to have NBA this weekend, and I can't wait. I cannot wait. And I hope the Celtics get to the finals because I think they have a really good shot, and they're not giving, and folks aren't giving them enough credit. I think the Celtics are primed to get there. Nah, he caught the Rona before the bubble. Their last line of tests, everybody was negative. They can beat the Bucks. The Celtics can beat the Bucks. I think that Philadelphia is probably a bigger threat than the Bucks are, in my opinion. I think the Celtics can beat the Bucks. I think the 76ers are the threat. I would love to see Celtics versus Lakers. I would love to see Celtics versus Lakers. And it's more and more looking like the West is going to go through LeBron, man, because after what happened with Lou Williams and that whole situation, it's not good, man. I believe in Doc and I believe in Kawhi, but I don't know. 76ers are absolutely a threat. 76ers are absolutely a threat. Nah, I ain't saying that. I could see somebody from the East taking it. I could see the Bucks doing it. I could see 76ers doing it. And I could see the Celtics doing it. I don't think it's a given. Oh, look, man, if you in the chat, you can ask them. We don't have Patreon, but we do take donations here on YouTube. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Bucks are going to be like this is about to open up the floodgates up for Boston because Boston's going to be able to keep their starting five. Like I think from a team playing standpoint, I think the Celtics starting five is pretty good because they have 4 people starting that can make their own shot. And I think in the NBA playoffs, that is important. You got to have the ability to make your own shot. And most teams only have 1 or 2. And the Celtics have 4, and they all start. So I think that's very important. And I think Brad is a much better coach than most of these coaches that are still in the playoffs. They're going to, but they're gonna pay him. They're gonna play. They are going to pay him. Like they are going to pay these guys. Tatum is going to get paid. Nah, they'll be able to play. They're gonna be able to play Tatum. I think they're gonna play Tatum. Now Jalen, that might be a problem. I don't think they're gonna be able to play Jalen and Tatum. That's gonna be the dilemma, unless they make their decision to trade somebody, which is possible. But I think Kemba's a different person in the playoffs too, and now Kemba has a squad around him. So I think like Kemba is a much better fit for the Celtics than Kyrie was. So I could see them getting to the finals. So, and I think the Hayward experiment might go bye-bye soon. So I could see a situation where they trade Hayward away and then sign Tatum and they sign Jaylen Brown. It's Bonifon, man. The Blazers will be interesting if they get in. Let's see here. Yeah, they will. Oh, yeah, they will. And it's not Brad Stevens' call. It's Danny Ainge's call. And Danny's is going to do what's best for the franchise. So if he thinks it makes sense to get some value for Gordon Hayward, they're going to. But the problem is that it might not be as potent as if trading Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. But if they're going to have to trade one of them, I think they should trade Jaylen. But I don't want them to trade either. I think if they can move Hayward, that would be my preference. Because I think Hayward hasn't been the same guy since he broke his leg, man, which is a shame. So, yeah, I named my captains earlier. KK, Shaq, Trey. No, it won't be Trey. They got to have a special teams captain, so it'll probably be like Jansen or somebody. And then on the offensive side, it'll probably be CMC, Teddy, and Teddy. Let's see. I mean, look, man, all it takes is one team to tango, particularly a Philly team, some sorry team, somebody that's desperate. That's all it takes. All it takes is one. I don't think Moan's going to be a captain. But we'll see. All right. I think I've given y'all a lot tonight. I'm pushing almost 90 minutes. So I'm going to get ready to close this out. So for the folks who showed up, I appreciate you listening to the podcast tonight. Make sure you subscribe to us on Facebook, Panther Nation Podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Panther Nation Podcast. Make sure you we're all over the place when it comes to the podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Stitcher, we're on Spotify, so you can find us anywhere. You can follow the podcast at Panther Nation PC on Twitter. You can follow me at ChampD1012. And always remember, keep pounding. And I'm about to call it a bye-bye. I'm about to say bye-bye, and we'll see you next week, and Rashad will be here. All right? Thanks, guys, for listening.